to make their seed fall. This he's telling about Israel, and he will make their seed fall among the Gentiles, and he will scatter them in the lands. In Isaiah 61:9, and it says, and their seed, the seed of Israel, shall be known among the Gentiles, and their offspring in the midst of the peoples. All who see them shall acknowledge them, that they are the seed Yahweh has blessed. And Jeremiah, well, I don't want to get to that yet, but and in Ezekiel 22:15, I will disperse thee to the nations and will scatter thee among the countries, and I will put an end to the uncleanness in thee. See, one of the things is that when you really study out the promises made to Isaac, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, these people were going to be so, it doesn't make sense. If this nation stayed so localized and could not intermarry, as they were told to do, how was this prophecy of them being this unbelievable multitude? It's like, how does they don't fit? How is this going to happen? Well, of course, God understood and was going to use all things working together for good, this northern kingdom that was going to be dispersed and was going to be scattered and was going to go out into all the nations, and was going to be multiplied. And like I said, I like work every word sometimes in these verses, and it says that all nations will be blessed. That it's every, to the point of this is the fulfillment of this thing. This is every nuclear family on the earth will be blessed with some of the seed of Abraham. Now that's a heck of a dispersion. That is an unbelievable multiplication. You know what that is? That's called the fullness of the Gentiles. That seed went out, and I'm telling you, you got to think seed, you got to think people, you got to think offspring. These are descendants. These are just people going out there, intermarrying, multiplying to the point where they are going to affect their seed, the seed of Yah. Because I'll tell you the secret, in Hebraic idioms, Abraham's seed is a lot of times called Yah's. Yah's another name for God. Yah's seed. This is how God, because a lot of it's a numbers game here, is going to reproduce his seed in all the earth. So all things will work for God's plan. He will work salvation out through the nations. So I don't care what tribal people group you come from, you have some Abrahamic seed in your nuclear families. Now let me just give you a little heads up on how to read your Old Testament. So beginning with Isaiah, you have to understand that, and this is part of the blindness, this whole thing, the fact that we haven't really, and even the Jews today, and the Gentile Christians do not really understand this thing in its fullness. It's beginning to come on the radar pretty fast, praise God. But a part of it is the blindness that's on both of us because of our disobedience. But now that we have two kingdoms with two sets of prophecies and different prophets and different tracks now. You just think of it a train that just split, and they're just totally still going to the same destination, but on totally parallel tracks. In the Old Testament, when you read in your verses, this is what you have to really understand. The house of Israel is a very specific demographic people group. The house of Ephraim, Samaria, the house of Joseph. Now, when you read Old Testament verses, when you see those things, what we have to do is train yourself to understand that is talking about the dispersed northern kingdom. Now, what's kind of interesting is they don't know. After a while, they lost track of themselves. That's why I call it the world's greatest identity theft. Their identity was taken from them. They so mixed and mingled with the Gentiles, they lost it. We are all out there not really understanding. But God is able to keep track. He says not even a hair of your head is going to get mixed up in all this. He's going to know exactly who everybody is, where they are, when they live, the whole bit. But the house of Ephraim, and I'll give you tons of examples in the Bible, is a great euphemism. It's like a code word, again. Like Ariel. Do you know that Ariel is another word for Israel? I mean, if you don't know that and you're reading the verse, you're going to blow past past it and you're not going to understand what the verse is talking about and applicable. Okay? The Chaldeans. Well, that's just another name for the Babylonians. So if you don't know the Babylonians or Chaldeans, you know how, there's so many names. I think there's like 60 names for Zion, for, Israel and Jerusalem. Now the house of Ephraim, and this is what you have to understand about the northern tribes and why. Ephraim originally was the lead tribe. Okay, well, this gets into the whole, and this is what's so fascinating, the whole thing. I mean, oh my gosh, you'll never understand. How do I sum all this up in such a short time? The 12 tribes really are 13 because you have Joseph's 2 sons. Now, Joseph was one of the younger sons, Jacob, from his favorite wife, Rebekah. She had this son, Joseph. Okay, Joseph, with the coat of many colors. Joseph had all these dreams and he had all this idea. He had a lot of prophetic dreams, which were really very prophetic of all prophetic history, going all the way forward, even to our day today. His coat of many colors. It's a very great parallel of how the gospel will go out, and people in the house of Israel now will be of every tribe, nation, tongue on the whole planet. When blessings, and this is where you understand the firstborn, to understand, and these are things we've lost this because we just don't live in this biblical culture where these things, so we just blow past and we don't understand the enormity of the prophetic, the deep prophetic understanding that's being stated, what a firstborn, what that's all about. The blessings that go upon sons. That's why one of the books, and I tell you, really, this is a great book to read, to recapture, especially the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, which was a book, found in the Dead Sea Scrolls that was definitely circulating. The Essenes had it. A lot of groups had it. It's a beautiful book. It is a beautiful book. And a lot of the level of holiness and just the blessings, you'll really understand so much of prophetic history. So I just recommend to read that. It's just, you can get online. Just Google Testament of the 12 Patriarchs. Okay? Joseph had these 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. And they were twins, but again, Manasseh was born a couple seconds before Ephraim, so he was technically the firstborn. But Ephraim, when Jacob the patriarch went to give the blessings to his sons, to his son, Joseph's sons, he crossed his hands. There's this whole little story in the Bible, and you can miss so much if you don't really. He crossed his hands, and he put the blessings for the firstborn on the younger son, and his dad wanted to say, no, he didn't take his hand, think his dad's senile, I mean, come on, Dad, no, put it over here on Manasseh, because he's really the firstborn, and Jacob was like, no, son, I know what I'm doing. I'm led of the Spirit of God, and he said, no, this one, Ephraim, will receive the firstborn blessings. That is just so huge to the story. It is. But I won't unpack the whole thing now. But the understanding these things. So Ephraim became one of the major tribes. And you understand now this is not one of the brothers now. This is the next generation. But Ephraim becomes one of the major tribes with major patriarchal firstborn blessings upon it. Okay? So they become the predominant tribe. Shiloh, which was the first capital of Israel when they went into the promised land, was in the territory of Ephraim, and that's sort of where they had, every tribe actually had a little place of assembly there. That was where the first worship was. That's where the tabernacle was first put, and that was the first capital. So Shiloh has a huge history to it also, and it was in Ephraim's territory. And then when it got wrenched from them and put down in Jerusalem, that was sort of like a little bit of a breach, a little brotherly jealousy, that just never really totally healed over. So some of the verses, even when you understand that, that in the last days, Ephraim will not be jealous of Judah anymore. When he says the scepter will not depart from Judah. I mean, God is very cagey in the way he keeps his plan moving forward. You just got to go with him. And but Ephraim, so whenever you see the house of Ephraim or Ephraim, it's really talking about it's just talking about the northern kingdom. You cannot put Judah in there. You can't put all 12 tribes in there. You just got to stick with, this is to the scattered tribes of the northern kingdom. Bottom line, that's it. There's no fudging on that. These prophets were not confused. They knew exactly who they were talking to. They were talking to a very real audience, and the audience knew when he said, "Ho, house of Ephraim, I got something to tell you from the Lord." They knew exactly who they were who the Lord was talking to. You couldn't hide behind this one. So the house of Israel, the house of Ephraim, Samaria, which is that geographic area, and the house of Joseph, because Joseph's two sons inherited the birthright, the major birthright blessings that were divided. Okay? So then you have your southern kingdom. Now this is what is so interesting about all this, and this is what 90% of people, even in the world, miss. The house of Judah, the Jews over there in Israel today, predominantly, because this is the storyline, this is very important to understand, that is really the southern kingdom, by and large. Now, I know there's been great migrations. I know that many people have attached themselves to this thing. But in the largest picture of the thing, in the greatest demographics, and Judah, went into the Babylonian captivity, but they came back. Judah never stopped celebrating the Sabbath, which is highly key. That is why they're still a nation of identity, why they're heading back to the land. See, we're not separate peoples, people. We're one big family. We're all brothers and sisters. And this is why our heart is for Israel. This is such a great revelation. God is not, we are not Gentile Christians. And we are not. We are a mixed multitude of people who have Yah's seed, Abraham's seed, and we are responding to the call of God on our lives. But we are one people going towards one salvation with one Lord, one God. Okay, now God's going to do, and this is what trips people up in the end times, he's doing a different thing to get Judah's attention back. Because I'll tell you what, they are stiff-necked, okay? And it's going to go right down to the wire. I'm telling you what, God is going to have to put them through such a crucible to make them call out to their Yahweh. But we're going to be there for them. Ephraim, I'm telling you what, this is such I want to cry, a great revelation. Because we're going to be there. Okay. It has such prophetic import for our times in which we live. And this is really good news. Because when you understand what the birthright, the firstborn birthright blessing is and its responsibilities. So, you have then Israel. You have the house of Judah, which is pretty much called the house of Judah. It's the southern kingdom. And you know what? In the whole story, and this is what's so funny, Gentile Christians, the whole story of the prodigal son, in Hebraic understanding, that whole story is about Israel and the divided kingdom. The prodigal is the 10 tribes that just went out and spent their inheritance. They just blew it. And the older brother, who is Judah, who, stayed loyal to the father, stayed in the house, kept celebrating those Sabbaths, down the way. Okay, that's what that story is really all about. And it's just beautiful. And it says so much when you understand it from that perspective. I mean, yes, we're all prodigals and, we all stray and come back. But in its deepest, prophetic, biblical, but the prophets spoke. They're talking about the northern nation and the southern nation. Now, let's go on. And now, if you want to see a verse, and I spent a lot of time on this because this was revolutionary to me. When I started going through the Old Testament, I said, oh my gosh, I see it. I never saw it. No one ever taught it to me. I'm teaching it to you. If you'll do this, the whole Old Testament will open up. It will become like rivers of living water will start flooding into your spirit. Now, when you see in a verse, and usually in one verse and then right below it, like a verse that's got a verse A and verse B, or a verse and then a verse, if it's talking to the whole house of Israel, all 12 tribes, this is prophetic understanding of what it will have both Israel and Jacob. Jacob's a key code word. It will use Israel and Jacob right there in the verse, so you will know. Because Jacob obviously means all 12. Jacob had 12 sons, so that's a real code word. So if you see Israel, because Jacob's name was changed to Israel, okay? You can't get kind of tripped up between the northern kingdom, the house of Israel, and Israel, the name that God gave Jacob after he had that encounter with the angel, okay? So this is fundamental to understanding. So then Israel and Jacob, I'll just give you exact, in Isaiah 14, it says, the Lord will have compassion on Jacob. Once again, he will choose Israel. That's talking about the whole 12 tribes. And that, okay, so let's just go really quickly here. See, I don't want to show you this. I don't know if we can do a close-up of this. I do have one quick thing I want to show you. Here's another verse from Ezekiel 37:22. I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king to them all, and they shall no more be two nations, neither shall be divided into two kingdoms anymore. This is just a little chart. I mean, this is just your typical Bible history chart, but look at this if you get it close. It is so important to understand, this is the northern kingdom, and these are her kings, okay? These were scattered here by, I think it was in 722 BC, the Assyrian had happened, done. They were deported from the land and they were scattered. They have never been back to the land. They are lost to themselves, but they are not lost to God. And the prophets, that this is where you'll see the beautiful prophecies, and then you will see all that has come to pass that we think as Gentile Christians God was doing for us, when in reality, when you understand it, it was being done for the lost tribes. Remember, Jesus said, I have come for the lost tribes of the house of Israel, and then you're going to see what Paul saw. But the last thing, and then you'll see over here the kings of Judah, okay? Two tribes, two kingdoms with their own kings, their own prophetic track, their own history, and their own end time eschatology. Very key. Let me just show you, well, I guess we don't have a lot of time left. This is probably going to take about 3 weeks to really unpack, because I just think this is amazing. And this really, if people want to know where America is in prophecy, I'll tell you, it's right here. It's right here. Let me show you how all Israel, I'm going to read a couple verses. Okay, because these are all the things, what happened, if you read the prophet Hosea, which probably we'll start with next week. Hosea is all over this thing. Hosea is the prophet who is told to marry a prostitute and have these kids and give them these special names, because again, God is prophetically saying what's going on. And just starting out right away, right in the book of verse 1 in Hosea, the word of the Lord that came to Hosea, son of Beri, during the reigns of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and during the reign of Jeroboam, son of Joash, king of Israel. This guy was not confused. He knew the two kingdoms and what he had to do, what God was telling him to do, to be a witness, a prophetic witness to both kingdoms. So, but all through all through Hosea, it's so much about Ephraim mixing with the nations. This is right here in chapter 7, verse 8. Ephraim mixes with the nations. What can I do with you, Ephraim? And, he goes, come, let us, when Ephraim saw his sickness, hear, listen, O royal house, hear you priests, pay attention, you Israelites, okay? These are all ways in which he is talking to Ephraim. Ephraim feeds on the wind. He pursues the east wind all day. When Ephraim spoke, men trembled. Okay, so we're going to pick up there, but I want you to just, I want to leave you with one thought here, because, let me read this. Because, and this is huge. You go online, I'll tell you again, the spin doctors are out there. This is huge to try to wade through. It can get very racist. I mean, people just spin the word of God. I mean, it's like, how do you even call yourself God who is love? How do you, okay, just persevere. You have the Spirit of God. Ask, seek, and knock, and he will reveal it to you. But the scattered tribes shall return. This is just the greatest thing. Let me tell you what God says in the Word. He says that when God restores the fortunes of the whole house of Israel, when he reveals what he has done, how he's worked salvation for the nations through them, and they understand who they are, and it all comes out, everything's coming out. He says that it will make the first exodus out of Egypt look like a kid did it. When he pulls the nations out and reveals himself, it will be the greatest feat that God has ever done. This will give him the most glory. He said the whole nations, all the nations, will be absolutely astounded. If you think the revealing of the Antichrist is going to astound the nations, let me tell you what. God has one better. So stay tuned next week. We're going to unpack this. But read some of the Old Testament using those codes and keys I told you. Tell me if it doesn't open it up for you. Good night and God bless.